do your part.
Welcome back. I'm Howard Phillips, chairman of the Conservative Caucus, which sponsors Conservative Roundtable, and we're privileged to have as our very special guest Steve Forbes, whose name is, I'm sure, known to you, the head of Forbes Media, involved in a wide variety of successful media enterprises, someone who has won many awards for his economic prognostications, his insightful analyses, etc., and someone who ran two very good races for the presidency of the United States. Steve, what did you learn from those contests?
Well, other than it's more fun to win than to lose, and that these undertakings are it's like the defense budget. You can't do it on the cheap. But I came away with a real appreciation of the American people for all of the junk of our culture and all of that fluffy stuff. There's a real bedrock there, and so it did not surprise me, for example, after 9/11, you got the reaction that you did. There's a real sinew in this country, and I think you're seeing it in a way playing out on this whole health care debate. That is grassroots. That's not traditional opposition from traditional sources. And so for all of the talk of diversity, we are a very heterogeneous nation in one sense, very different interests. Take the Republican Party of Iowa, very different from the Republican Party of New Hampshire, but also some very shared values that keep this extraordinary nation together. So in that sense, it was a positive. You also learned that the media is what we always suspected it was. No shock there. So and you learn about people in a way you never do traveling on business or as a tourist. So.
In '96, Bob Dole became the nominee. In 2000, George W. Bush became the nominee. Looking back, can you think of things you might have done differently that would have altered the outcome?
Well, you do. It's human nature. But then you always have to remind yourself, it's not a static world, that if you might have done things differently, perhaps others would have done things differently. My father, when he taught me chess as a youngster, said, as you focus on your moves, remember you have an opponent, a live opponent. And if you do a move you think is brilliant, they may do a counter move. Always realize there are other forces out there.
I indicated before the break that if there was ever a year in which it was wide open for a Steve Forbes to become the Republican nominee for president, 2012 could be that year. The Republican establishment basically picked George W. Bush in 2000. They said, he's our guy. And there's the whole royalty factor, the whole next-in-line factor that led to Bob Dole having a supposed claim on the nomination in '96. But if there were ever a wide-open race, I think it's 2012. Now, I have had a lot of admiration for Mark Sanford, but apparently he's disqualified himself on the basis of his personal life. But in terms of issues and so forth, I was very impressed with the guy. I had first met him when he was a member of Congress, strong pro-lifer, strong on other things, et cetera.
Well, kept his word on term limits and fought spending, which was a contrast to what was happening in Washington.
There's a great story about how he walked into the legislature with a pig under each arm.
Pork and barrel.
Manifesting his concerns. I was chatting the other day with our mutual friend, Richard Viguerie, about what constitutes success for conservatives, not just for a candidate. And he said one of the reasons why Ronald Reagan was so popular with conservatives and so effective as president was that long before he became the Republican nominee for president, he walked with conservatives. There was always a conservative at his elbow, whether it was Bill Clark or Marty Anderson or Lynn Nofsinger or whatever. And Richard is of the view, as am I, that you could become the Republican nominee in 2012, but that one thing you would be well advised to do would be to, not that you're a bashful man or that you avoid like-minded folks, but make an effort to spend time on a regular basis with conservative activists. And there's a whole new breed of them. Those who were the founders of the so-called New Right and the conservative movement in the 70s have been supplemented or superseded by dozens and dozens of younger men and women, new organizations, and Reagan was not their peer in terms of age, which made it all the more beneficial for him to spend time with such people. They appreciated it all the more because he was sort of a patriarchal or paternal figure.
Sure.
So anyway, for whatever it's worth, that was the advice that Richard Viguerie shared with me.
Well, thank you. I see my role now as agitator, especially at a time like this, but I think you make a very good point on young conservatives. People say, well, who's the next Reagan? And I think everyone appreciates you don't replicate Ronald Reagan. What you want are thousands of mini Reagans, people on the state legislature, people in governorships, people in Congress, so that we don't depend just on one individual. This is a deep movement, and I think that's one reason why you see what's happening now in reaction to the socialist policies of the Obama administration. You've got people thinking in ways that just wasn't there 30 years ago on a broader and broader base. People instinctively understand this stuff does not work. The myth of the 30s was just that.
It's amazing how things have changed. I had the honor of speaking at the 5th anniversary dinner of National Review magazine in 1960. They picked me to speak because I was president of the student council at Harvard, and they thought it was